Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another SIFL recap. And today, we have a lot to talk about. We have week 3, week 4, week 5, week 6, week 7. We're going to be talking about more than that as well. And I am sorry about the late recap. I have been way behind and I haven't been able to put one out. But yeah, so here we go. This is our first recap in about 2 months. We have gone through 8 weeks. We are not going to talk about week 8 in this video as I'm saving it for the next recap, but we will talk about week 7 and under. Last recap, we covered preseason week 1 and week 2. So starting off with week 3 today, but first we have to talk about some signings. As you may have seen on the community tab, the Vipers signing Trevelyan. We are not going to say his last name on here today. But they signed him to a 1-season deal in week 6. So he is now a player of the Vipers as he was a sub for both teams before being signed. After this season, he will be put into the draft to be drafted, and we're going to get into that later. But the Bolts also signed Rayson Rodriguez, wide receiver, and running back for the team, and Peyton Thompson, wide receiver and running back for the team. So the starting 3 is Hagan Champlin, me at quarterback, Misal Navarrete at wide receiver, and Peyton Thompson at running back, and Rayson comes in often. And as you may have seen the new logo, the SIFL has been rebranded. And yeah, it'll be like this until we rebrand again, which I don't know if we ever will, but this is our new rebrand. And we decided, as it is hard to find us on YouTube because there's a lot of SFL channels on YouTube, so we changed to SIFL. But yeah, let's get right into it with week 3 here. Week 3, Bolts 12, Vipers 6. Champlin 54 rushing yards, 58 passing yards. Rodriguez played in week 3. 2 receptions, 1 touchdown, 32 yards. Well, I used to write these scorecards that I'm reading off weird, so it's 2 receptions, 32 yards, 1 touchdown. Misal Navarrete, 3 receptions, 26 yards, 1 touchdown. Colin Meckham, 0 rushing yards as he played quarterback because of Logan Oxley's injury. So Meckham, 0 rush yards, 31 passing yards. Oxley played wide receiver, 1 reception, 14 yards, 1 penalty, false start. And Caleb Zambrano, 3 receptions, 1 touchdown. 3 receptions, 16 yards, 1 touchdown. Special teams, Bolts kickoff, Vipers ball, Vipers score 6-0, Vipers kick, Bolts ball. Bolts score 6-6, Bolts forced 4th down, turnover. Vipers onside kick, Bolts ball, Bolts score 6-12, final. And yeah, so player of the game was Misal Navarrete, 1 touchdown, 3 receptions today. And, well, not today, but in week 1, Logan Oxley's return. So, yeah, week 3, game 2. Bolts 6, Vipers 0, Champlin 43 passing yards, 36 rushing yards. No touchdowns for Champlin. Well, me, I guess. Navarrete, 0 receptions, 0 rushing yards. Not a good game for Misal. Corbin Mingo was a sub. He will also be in the draft. 2 receptions, 43 yards, 1 touchdown. Logan Oxley, 12 passing yards, 0 touchdowns. His return to QB. Hurtado, she will also be in the draft. 1 reception, 8 yards. And Zambrano, 1 reception, 4 yards. Not a good game for either team. Special teams, Vipers kickoff, Bolts ball, Bolts score 6-0, final. Player of the game, Corbin Mingo, scored the only points for the Vipers. The Bolts, sorry. Week 4, game 1, Bolts 24, Vipers 0. They finally woke up from the week before. Champlin, 126 passing yards, 108 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns. And this is for the whole team. I changed the format, so this one's kind of weird. I counted all the touchdowns on the quarterback, but then also put them on the scoring people. So I rushed for a touchdown. Rodriguez, 2 receptions, 14 yards, 14 rushing yards, 0 touchdowns, and Navarrete, 5 receptions, 112 yards, 3 touchdowns. Oxley, 21 passing yards, 8 rushing yards, 0 touchdowns. Zambrano, 2 receptions, 12 yards, 0 touchdowns, and Hurtado, 1 reception, 9 yards, 0 touchdowns. And Oxley is Logan Oxley. Zambrano is Caleb Zambrano. Hurtado is Janessa Hurtado. Misal, Navarrete, Rayson Rodriguez, Hagen Champlin. So I write the last names on here, and that's how I go by. Okay, so special teams, Vipers kickoff, Bolts ball, Bolts score 6-0, Bolts kick, Vipers ball, Bolts score 12-0, Bolts kick, Vipers ball, Bolts score 18-0, Bolts kick, Vipers ball, Bolts score 24-0, and those are on either turnovers or something. But player of the game, you saw Navarrete with all of his receiving yards. Okay. Week 4, Game 2, Bolts versus Vipers. Bolts 30, Vipers 6. Champlin, 98 passing yards, 49 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns. Navarrete, 4 receptions, 76 yards, 4 touchdowns. And Rayson Rodriguez, 36 rushing yards, 3 receptions, 22 yards, 1 touchdown. For the Vipers, Logan Oxley, 21 passing yards, 14 rushing yards, 1 touchdown. Janessa Hurtado, 2 receptions, 11 yards, 0 touchdowns. And Zambrano, 11 rushing yards, 2 receptions, 10 yards, 1 touchdown. And this was a double-day game, meaning it was tied 6-6, I think, at the end. And they resumed the game the next day. So Bolts kick off, Vipers ball. Vipers score first, 0-6. Vipers kick, Bolts ball. Bolts score 6-6. Game resumed, which would have been the next day. Vipers kick off, Bolts ball. Bolts score 12-6. Bolts kick, Vipers ball. Bolts score 18-6. Bolts kick, Vipers ball. Bolts score 24-6. Bolts kick, Vipers ball. Bolts score 30-6. Bolts kick, final. Player of the game, we saw Navarrete, second game in a row. Week 5, Game 1, Bolts 12, Vipers 0. Champlin, 48 passing yards, 8 rushing yards, 0 touchdowns. 2 touchdowns, sorry. Misal Navarrete, 2 receptions, 26 yards, 2 touchdowns. Rodriguez, 2 receptions, 22 yards, 30 rushing yards, 0 touchdowns. Logan Oxley, 22 passing yards, 8 rushing yards, 0 touchdowns. 1 penalty, unnecessary block, which resulted in a touchdown for the Bolts. I think Oxley, 22 passing yards, 8 rushing yards, 0 touchdown. I just read Oxley's again, I think. Meckham, 2 receptions, 11 yards, 0 touchdowns. 1 penalty, pass interference. Zambrano, 2 receptions, 11 yards, 0 touchdowns. Special teams, Vipers kickoff, Bolts ball, Bolts score 6-0, Bolts kick, Vipers ball, Bolts score 12-0 final. And player of the game, Misal Navarrete, third game in a row. Week 5, Game 2, Bolts score 6 and Vipers score 0. Champlin, 32 rushing yards, 26 passing yards, 1 touchdown. Rodriguez, 2 receptions, 12 yards, 36 yards, 1 touchdown. Navarrete, 1 reception, 14 yards, 0 touchdowns. For the Vipers, Oxley, 4 rushing yards, 14 passing yards, 0 touchdowns. Zambrano, 11 rushing yards, 0 touchdowns. And Meckham, 2 receptions, 14 yards, 0 touchdowns. And special teams, small again. Vipers kickoff, Bolts ball, Bolts score 6-0, Bolts kick, final. And player of the game, Rayson Rodriguez for his first time. Scorecard, Week 6. Okay, so this is Week 6, Game 1. Bolts 24, Vipers 6. And Thompson played on the team. Misal never had an off day. Champlin, 84 rushing yards, 96 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, and pick 6 to end off the game. Rodriguez, 3 receptions, 48 yards, 28 rushing yards, 1 touchdown. And Thompson in his first game with the team, 4 receptions, 48 yards, 104 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. And for the Vipers, Oxley, 24 rushing yards, 42 passing yards, 1 touchdown. Zambrano, 3 receptions, 24 yards, 20 rushing yards, 1 touchdown. And Meckham, 2 receptions, 18 yards, 0 touchdowns. And for special teams, Bolts kick off, Vipers ball, Bolts score 6-0. Bolts kick, Vipers ball, Vipers score 6-6. Vipers kick, Bolts score 12-6. Bolts kick, Bolts score 18-6. And Bolts score again 24-6 final. And player of the game, Hagen Champlin. It should have been Thompson, but I might have read the wrong name. So, scorecard, which is game 2 of week 6. Okay, Champlin, 68 rushing yards, 91 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. Rodriguez, 2 receptions, 21 yards, 28 rushing yards, almost said 98, 1 touchdown. And Thompson, 6 receptions, 96 yards, 61 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. And a pick 6 to end the game, 2 games in a row with the pick 6. And Oxley, 13 rushing yards, 28 passing yards, 0 touchdowns. Zambrano, 1 reception, 8 yards, 4 rushing yards, 0 touchdowns. And the first game with Trevelyan playing, 2 receptions, 20 yards, 0 touchdowns. Special teams, Bolts kick off, Vipers ball, Bolts score ×4 because I don't want to write that game over. No action for the Vipers, pretty much. And player of the game, Peyton Thompson, as he deserved. And our last week, scorecard, I keep reading the thing. Sorry. Week 7, game 1. Bolts 12, Vipers 6, close game. By a touchdown. Champlain, 81 rushing yards, 75 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 rushing touchdown. Navarrete, 3 receptions, 51 yards, 2 interceptions. That game he went off, 1 touchdown. And Thompson, 3 receptions, 24 yards, 0 touchdowns. For the Vipers, Oxley, 24 rushing yards, 38 passing yards, 0 touchdown. Zambrano, 1 reception, 14 yards, 0 touchdowns. And Colin Meckham, 2 receptions, 24 yards, 1 touchdown. Special teams, Vipers kick off, Bolts ball. Bolts score 6-0. Bolts kick, Vipers ball, Vipers score 6-6. Vipers kick, I messed it up. But it should have been Vipers kick off, Bolts ball, Bolts score 6-0. Bolts kick, Vipers ball, Vipers score 6-6. Vipers kick, Bolts score 12-6 final. That's what it should have been. But trust me, guys, I look over it, but I missed it. Okay, player of the game, Misal Navarrete. And our final game to go over, thank the Lord, my breath is running out. Bolts 18, Vipers 6. Champlin, 81 rushing yards, 71 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Thompson, 2 receptions, 32 yards, 36 rushing yards, 1 touchdown. And Navarrete, 3 receptions, 39 yards, 1 touchdown. Oxley has a breakout game. 61 rushing yards, 41 passing yards, 0 touchdowns. Trevelyan, his third game, I think, 2 receptions, 15 yards, 1 touchdown off a head top. It was crazy to watch it. And Zambrano, 3 receptions, 26 yards, 0 touchdowns. Bolts kick off, Vipers ball. Bolts score 6-0. Bolts kick, Vipers score 6-6. Vipers kick, Bolts score 12-6. Bolts kick, Bolts score 18-6 final. And player of the game, Logan Oxley, even though he was on the losing team, had a breakout game but still lost. It's okay. And scorecards are now up to date, and as of week 7. And yeah, in the week 8 next recap, like I said, and the coaches prepare for the draft. Draft day will be, and I think we haven't had a date yet, but it'll be after the Pro Bowl. And the championship is November 15th. So yeah. That'll make an end to our recap. That was a long recap, our longest one, about 14-15 minutes now. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. If you watched this long, comment Expo marker in the comments. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. This is your SIFL Commissioner Hagen Champlin. and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.